Oh, I did not take a picture. Forgive me. Forgive me. Forgive me. I'm not really feeling really well today, but we're going to go ahead and read out of Codeword Babylon, Book 2, 666. Antichrist is a Woman, Alive and Well by P.D. Stuart. We are in chapter 19. Exposed again. 1260 years of world domination. For the purpose of identification, the apocalyptical calendar tells us the exact duration of the first period of the reign of Antichrist and his best vicar and friend, and her best vicar and friend. This time period is given in the book of Daniel, chapter 12, verse 7, as time, times, and half a time, which we will prove is equal to 3.5 years, or 1260 prophetic, not literal, days. And in Revelation chapter 12, in the 6th and 14th verses, the same period is given again as 1260 days, using the well-known principle of interpreting Bible prophecy, where a day stands for a year. See Ezekiel chapter 4, verse 6. This 3.5 years, or 1260-day period, would then equal to 1260 literal years. This is the period of Roman Catholic domination. But does history concur with us that the Catholic Church ruled uninterrupted for 1260 literal years? Accuracy of prophecy, the Bible, and history aligns. Lest any should be inclined to doubt whether these old visions in the book of Daniel are foundations upon which one can safely fix his or her foot in the manner I have asserted, and from thence, as from a watchtower, measure the rest of the history. Let such a one consider that hundreds of years before the rise of Rome, the prophet Daniel had accurately predicted the sequence of the four world powers stretching from his time under the Babylonian Empire to the Empire of Rome. Daniel chapter 7 records the rise of four great beasts and says in verse 17, these great beasts, which are four kings, which shall arise out of the earth. Verse 23. Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon the earth. The connection between these visions and the whole dynastic history of ancient times to fairly modern years is set forth in the sacred calendar and great almanac of prophecy, says the illustrious Joseph Mead. That great almanac of prophecy has been confirmed by history, the latter of which tells us that the Babylonian Empire, founded by Belus, believed to be the Nimrod of Holy Writ, and counting only from the time of Nebuchadnezzar, existed from 606 BC until about 538 BC, a period of 207 years, when it fell to the Medes and Persians. The Medo-Persian Empire existed from 538 BC until 331 BC. The third kingdom of Daniel, 7, answering to the belly and thighs of brass of the image, and to the third beast like a leper, is that of the Macedonians or Greeks under Alexander and his successors, with its four divisions, and which existed from 331 BC until 168 BC, a period of 163 years, which ended with the overthrow of subduing both Greek and Carthage in the decisive battle of Pydna against the Greek king Perseus. This war entirely broke the power of the ancient kingdom of Macedon, with the final demise coming some years later in 146 BC, when Greece was reduced to the form of a Roman province. From henceforth, Rome never again encountered an enemy worthy to be pitted against her. This fourth empire, Rome of the Caesars, existed from 146 BC until the close of the reign of the Roman Emperor Romulus Augustulus in August 476 AD, after which the power of the Roman Empire evolved into the power of the Roman Catholic Church. After this, I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly. And it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Daniel 7:7. Kohlhart writes, in fulfillment of this prophecy, the iron monarchy of Rome overthrew Greece and became greater than all those before it. Rome crushed the world under her feet and ruled with absolute power. John F. Kohlhart, What I Saw in Rome, 1958, Chapter 3. Then came the power of the papacy, or popes, which was not a new world power, but a continuation of the Fourth Roman Empire in a religious form. For, said Daniel, the fourth beast had 10 horns, Daniel 7:7. And he continues, I considered the 10 horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom 3 of the first horns were plucked up by the roots, and behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. Daniel chapter 7, verse 8. Note carefully that this little horn, which was to uproot 3 horns in its rise to prominence, was not to be a stranger to the 10 horns or powers, nations, that came out of the head of the fourth beast, but rather it would rise up from among them. All historians acknowledge that the ascendancy of the popes began in 508 AD, when King Clovis of the Saline or Moravian Franks, later France, won the decisive battle in the Catholic and Arian religious war, thereby settling the dispute in favor of the Catholics. But their temporal reign officially began in the year 538 AD, when Roman Emperor Justinian subdued the last of the 3 kingdoms or horns that opposed the rise of the papacy. It was at that time that Roman Catholicism was made the state religion, and all other forms of worship were forbidden in Christendom. Dr. Summer Bell writes, Justinian enriched himself with the property of all heretics, that is, non-Catholics, and published edicts in 538 compelling all to join the Catholic Church in 90 days or leave the empire, and confiscated all their goods. The great Gibbon states the same in his Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, chapter 47, paragraph 24. A Catholic writer proudly confirms, when Rome, pagan imperial, through the neglect of the Western emperors, were left to the mercy of the barbarous hordes, the Romans turned to one figure for aid and protection and asked him to rule them, and thus commenced the temporal sovereignty of the popes. And meekly stepping to the throne of Caesar, the vicar of Christ took up the scepter to which the emperors and kings of Europe were to bow in reverence through so many ages. From that time, the papacy reigned with absolute power from her official installation in 538 AD for a period of 1,260 years, known in history as the Dark Ages, which period was brought to an end by Napoleon in 1798. How do we know for sure that the little horn mentioned in Daniel chapter 7, verses 8, 21, and 25 is a hieroglyph for Roman Catholicism? We need only look at the description of that little horn power in Daniel 7 and compare it to that given of the woman in Revelation chapter 17. The beast of Revelation chapter 17, verses 3 and 7, upon which the mystery woman sits, is clearly the same beast of Daniel chapter 7, verse 20, and verse 24, and of Revelation chapter 13, verse 1. For all these beasts have 10 horns. However, Revelation chapters 13 and 17 give us additional details about this 10-horned beast or power. It tells us that the beast not only had 10 horns, but also 7 heads. We shall come back to the 7 heads later. As already mentioned, it was from 538 AD to 1789, a period of 1260 years, that the popes ruled with untrampled power until their long and unforgettable reign was brought to an end when Napoleon, in 1798, had his army under General Berthier enter the imperial city of Rome and proclaim it a republic, carrying away the equally imperial pontiff, Pope Pius VI, as a prisoner to France, where he died a less than imperial death the following year on the volcanic island of St. Helena. We are told that on the day of his captivity, Pope Pius VI was sitting on his throne in the Sistine Chapel, receiving the congratulations of his cardinals on the anniversary of his election, when his short reign came to an abrupt end. Arthur R. Pennington, MAFR, of the Historical Society, says of this event, on a sudden, the shouts of an angry multitude penetrated to the conclave, intermingled with the strokes of axes and hammers on the doors. Very soon, a band of soldiers burst into the hall, who tore away from his finger his pontifical ring and hurried him off a prisoner through a hall, the walls of which were adorned with a fresco representing the armed satellites of the papacy on St. Bartholomew's Day. And so ended. And in case you ask, how prove we that the time period mentioned in Daniel chapter 7, verse 25, 3.5 times, is the same 1260 years? We will now attempt an answer. Daniel chapter 7, verse 25 tells us that the reign of this dreadful power would be until a time, times, and the dividing of times. What is a time in Bible prophecy? Revelation chapter 12, verse 14 decodes this prophetic hieroglyph. Speaking of the other woman of the Revelation, the pure church, it says, and to the woman were given 2 wings, and she might fly into the wilderness. Visualize a place of safety or hiding for a time and times and half a time. This is the exact time period given in Daniel chapter 7, verse 25, using identical language. And I suggest that they must refer to the same events. A time is 1, while times is 2. Half a time is self-explanatory. But we still don't know what unit of time is being measured in the words until a time, times, and the dividing of times. Again, Revelation chapter 12 in the earlier verse 6 provides the definitive answer. Speaking of the pure church, it says, and the woman fled into the wilderness for 1,260, which is 60 days. Now, this is the same woman of Revelation chapter 12, verse 14. For we are told that she flees to the wilderness in both verse 6 and verse 14. And both verses describe the wilderness as her place of safety, where she is fed or nourished by God. Now, since the period mentioned in Revelation chapter 12, verse 14, a time and times and half a time, is identical with the time period given in Daniel chapter 7, verse 25, then the two must be one and the same time period of time. And further, since Revelation chapter 12, verse 6 makes it clear that the time period in verse 14 is the same as 1,260 days, then the prophetic time or times must be rendered as days. That is the 3.5 years of Revelation chapter 12, verse 14 is equivalent to the 1,260 days of Revelation chapter 12, verse 6. But since prophecies are rarely given for short periods of time, we must ask, are these synonymous time periods, Daniel 7:25 and Revelation 12, verse 6 and 12, just 1,260 literal days or some longer period of time? We find assistance to the unlocking of this difficulty concerning the use of small units of prophetic Bible time to represent much longer periods in the Old Testament book of Numbers. chapter 14 and verse 34, which reads, after the number of the days in which ye search the land, even 40 days, each day for a year, shall ye bear your iniquities, even 40 years, and ye shall know my breach of promise. Again, in Ezekiel chapter 4, verse 6, I have appointed, given thee each day for to be equal to a year. Here we see that in the Hebrew prophetic time, a day is used to represent a year. So that when Daniel chapter 7, verse 25, we read of a tyrannical power that was to do its thing for a time, times, and the dividing of times, we must translate a day into a year. Now, the Hebrew or Jewish year was 360 days. Since a time equals 360 days in a Jewish year, times would be 2 years or 720 days, and the dividing of times would be equal to half of a year or half of 360 days, which would be 180 days. Here is how it works out if we were to put into an equation. A time, 1 year, equals 360 days, Jewish year, and times or 2 times equals 720 days. And the dividing of times, or half a year, is 180 days. Add all together. Time equals 360 plus time equals 720 plus half a time is 180, which gives us a total of 3 1/2 Hebrew years or 1,260 days, which in prophetic time is 1,260 literal years. A day equals a year, number 14:34 and Ezekiel 4:6. It is not only biblical, but also logical to convert the 1,260 days of time prophecy into years, because in the Bible, prophecies are almost always given for years ahead and not for the next few days or months. And so the day in prophetic time always represents a prophetic year and not a literal day. All right. Let's see. It says, here's a little, I guess, I'll just show you what it is right there, a little there. And it has papacy rises to power, AD 538, decree of Justinian, 1,260 days or years papal supremacy, papacy wounded, AD 1798, Pius VI imprisoned by Napoleon. And that sketch is from the book Truth Matters by Professor Walter Vith. The fourth power that would arise, says Daniel in chapter 11, would have a ruler who shall be a raiser of taxes. Then shall stand up in his estate, i.e., as ruler, a raiser of taxes in the glory of the kingdom. But, adds the Holy Spirit, within few days he, the raiser of taxes, shall be destroyed, neither in anger nor in battle. And in his heart, no, not in his heart, and in his estate shall stand up a vile person, to whom they shall not give the honor of the kingdom, but he shall come in peaceably and obtain the kingdom by flatteries. And after the league made with him, he shall work deceitfully, for he shall come up and shall become strong with a small people. And he shall do that which his fathers, his predecessors in the empire, have not done, nor his fathers' fathers. He shall scatter among them the prey and spoil and riches. Yea, and he shall forecast his devices against the strongholds, even for a time. And the king, the one who obtained the kingdom by flatteries, shall do according to his will. And he shall exalt himself and magnify himself above every god, and shall speak marvelous things concerning the God of gods. And that was in Daniel chapter 11, verse 20, verse 21, verse 23, verse 24, and verse 36. John Colthart offers this interpretation in his book, What I Saw in Rome, which view may or may not be correct and stands or falls on its own merits. I merely draw it here for your attention. Imperial Rome. Remarkably enough, the prophet, i.e. Daniel, also described Julius Caesar's successor, Caesar Augustus Octavius, and foretold that he would reign in the days of Rome's glory and be remembered in history as a raiser of taxes. Then shall stand up in his estate a raiser of taxes in the glory of the kingdom. Daniel chapter 11, verse 20. The beginning of Emperor Augustus reign saw the beginning of Imperial Rome, which lasted from BC 28 until 476 AD. Augustus's reign has been justly styled the Golden Age, and arts and learning reached their highest peak. The emperor himself declared that he found Rome a city of brick and left it a city of marble. True to Daniel's prediction, Augustus reigned in the glory of the kingdom empire. The Bible chapter that describes the birth of Christ also tells of Augustus' tax-raising prosperities. And it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed, and all went to be taxed, everyone into his own city. And Joseph, the husband of Mary, who went up from Galilee out of the city of Nazareth unto the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, to be taxed with Mary. And so it was that while they were there, she brought forth her firstborn son and laid him in a manger. Luke chapter 2, 1-7. Daniel predicted that Julius Caesar, a raiser of taxes, would stand up in the glory of the kingdom. And here in these verses, we find Luke verifying it all. Augustus's tax plan were the most ambitious that the world had ever seen up to that time. Perhaps our minister of finance got his ideas from Augustus. At any rate, ambitious tax plans apparently did not die with Caesar, and it would seem that the others are aspiring to be known in history as a raiser of taxes. The prophet then went on to foretell the character of Augustus's successor. And in his estate shall stand up a vile person, to whom they shall not give the honor of the kingdom, but he shall come in peaceably and obtain the kingdom by flatteries. Daniel chapter 11, verse 21. History attests the utter truthfulness of this prophecy concerning Tiberius. It is recorded that as Augustus was about to nominate his successor, his wife Livia besought him to name Tiberius, her son, by a former husband. But the emperor replied, "Your son is too vile to wear the purple of Rome." And the nomination went to Agrippa. Agrippa soon died, and Augustus was again under the necessity of choosing his successor. Now, weakened by age and sickness, he succumbed to Livia's flatteries, and the 99 vile one became emperor. One writer of history says, tyranny, hypocrisy, debauchery, and uninterrupted intoxication, if these traits and practices show a man to be vile. Tiberius exhibited that character in disgusting perfection. Not long ago, my attention was drawn to a digest article on Tiberius, and after referring to his infamous and dissolute retirement, AD 26, to the Isle of Capri, it drew to a close with these words. And what was the end of this vile old man? And so there we have popular writer, historian, and Augustus himself, all unconsciously verifying Daniel the prophet, who 600 years before had said that a vile person would obtain the kingdom by flatteries. The next verse, Daniel chapter 11, verse 22, told us the prince of the covenant, identified in Daniel 9, 26 and 27 as being the Messiah, would die during this emperor's reign. And the book of Luke chapter 3 in history make it plain that was the time of Christ's death. It was during the reign of these last emperors that the Bishop of Rome succeeded in asserting his authority over the 4 bishops of the Christian church, the bishops of Jerusalem, Antioch, Constantinople, and Alexandria. This primacy was strengthened by the sack of Rome in 410 AD by the Goths under Alaric, the first capture of Rome by a foreign foe in more than 8 centuries. Then came the raids of Genseric and his Vandals in 455 AD. And finally, in 476, the deposition of the Western Emperor by the Teuton Odoacer. As each barbarian incursion took place, the position of the emperor declined, while the power of the Bishop of Rome, who became known as the Pope, was enhanced. Oh, forgive me. I'm so sorry. My nose is running. A little horn with a very big mouth. Let us look at this aspect of prophecy more closely. The 4th beast of Daniel had 10 horns. Said the prophet, I consider the 10 horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom 3 of the first horns were plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. Daniel chapter 7, verse 8. Daniel is later given the explanation of what he had just seen. And the 10 horns are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall rise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first, and shall speak great words against the Most High. Daniel chapter 7, verses 24 and 25. If the prophecy in Daniel 7, verses 8 and 24 is correct, we should expect that after the Roman Empire collapsed in 476 AD, it was to split into 10 nations or powers, horns, followed by the destruction of 3 of these powers and the rise of one power in their place. Thus, we must not only show that Rome was divided into 10 kingdoms on its demise, but also identify the 3 kingdoms that would be destroyed from the Roman Empire. History accurately records that after the demise of the ancient Rome, that there followed 10 divisions: the Franks, the Ostrogoths, the Visigoths, the Hurli, the Burgundians, the Suevi, the Anglo-Saxon, the Lombards, the Alemanni, and the Vandals. 3 of these 10 kingdoms opposed the rise of the papacy to power, and there they were plucked up or destroyed, just as the prophecy said. These 3 nations were the Hurli, the Vandals, and the Ostrogoths. The last of these were subdued by Justinian in 538, the very year in which began the reign of the popes over all Christendom. 7 of these horns, powers, or divisions exist down to our time. Anglo-Saxons is modern England. Franks is France. Lombards is Italy. Alemanni, modern Germany. Burgundians, Burgundians, modern Switzerland. Suevi, modern Portugal. Visigoths, modern Spain. The Hurli, Vandals, and Ostrogoths have no modern counterparts, as they were completely uprooted to make way for the rise of the little horn power, or Papal Rome. Now, mark well, the prophecy said, he shall be diverse from the first. Daniel chapter 7, verse 24. The Papal kingdom would therefore be a radically different kind of kingdom. While all the others before her were civil empires, she would adorn her political power with religious attire. Why all this history? Because, as Isaac J. Lansing said, we cannot really perceive or understand the menace of Romanism unless we review the history of the past as well as attentively survey the present. And so, reader, brace yourself, and I beg that you have the patience to examine this matter thoroughly and attentively, for we shall now probe the mystery to the very bottom, wherever that leads. Chapter 20. 7 kings, 5 are fallen, 1 is, and the other is yet to come, and the beast is the 8th. And there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was, and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition. Revelation chapter 17, verses 10 and 11. Concerning the history of Antichrist, the angel of Revelation informed the Apostle John that in this system there would be 8 kings, 5 of whom were already fallen, past, 1 of whom existed at that time, another that was yet to come, and that the beast's power yet to come would be the 8th, and yet would be one of the 7. This last or 8th king it is said would go into perdition, visualize final destruction. Who are these 8 kings? And how could the 8th, called a beast, also be one of the 7 kings before it? At first, this seems to make no sense whatsoever, not least because a beast is said to be a king. This is a great riddle, a Holy Ghost riddle, and we must solve it. Let us turn to history and see whether there is anything there which corresponds with the angelic prediction. We shall solve this riddle using the words of Revelation itself. And the angel said to me, Wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carrieth her, which hath the 7 heads and 10 horns. Revelation chapter 17, verse 7. And the angel says to John in the verses preceding the one under our contemplation, And there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will shew unto thee the judgment of the great whore. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit on a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. Revelation chapter 17, verses 1, verse 3, and verse 9. A woman is, as we have already seen, the symbol of a church. This woman is called the mother of harlots. Therefore, she must be an impure or corrupt church. See again Hosea chapter 4, verse 15, Isaiah chapter 1, verse 21, Jeremiah chapter 3, verse 1. We have already arrived at the conclusion that the corrupt church, the woman riding the beast, is no other than the Church of Rome, a conclusion which will be even more abundantly clear hereafter. But what are the 7 mountains upon which the woman sits? William J. Reed explains in his lectures on the Revelation. This part of the angel's explanation concerning 7 mountains is of great clearness and importance. It describes and fixes the locality, geography, of the civil power symbolized by the beast in such a way as precludes the possibility of mistake. There is a city built upon 7 hills, which has long been known as the 7-hilled city, proved in an earlier chapter to be none other than Rome. This name is well known to every student of history. And to confirm this interpretation, the angel tells us that the woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth. Revelation chapter 17, verse 18. And so, what first seemed to be a great mystery and a riddle is by this explanation from the angel plainly made to appear that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth is the city of Rome, situated on the river Tiber, 410 miles southeast of Vienna, 600 southeast of Paris, 730 east by north of Madrid, 760 west of Constantinople, and 780 southeast of London. Longitude 12 degrees to 55 east, latitude 41 to 54 north. Like I knew what that meant. I had no idea. I'm so sorry. I think it's talking about miles and stuff away from each other. From what city but Rome reigned over the kings of the earth at the time John had the vision of these things? In this language of Scripture, as given by the angel of Revelation, the Church of Rome is presented to us, no longer under the cryptic symbolism of a harlot, but in plain language as a wealthy city that would have power over the kings and the rulers of earth. Yes, reader, oh horror, the city is the seat of the blood-stained persecutor, Papal Rome. And a lot of people are trying to say it's America. That's what they're trying to say right now. The angel tells us still further, and there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition. Revelation chapter 17, verses 10 and 11. There are many fanciful interpretations of this passage. One I have read says that these are 7 literal popes, and that the Pope Benedict is the 7th, and after him the 8th, the final one, will come. In this notion, is this notion correct or founded on speculation? And what does the prophecy mean by the seemingly nonsensical phrase, the 8th is of the 7? Lo, reader, on this very point, a discovery has been made by the Holy Spirit. The 7 kings represent not 7 individuals or 7 popes, as some have speculated, but rather 7 different phases of Roman government, or 7 forms of the Roman government that ruled from the 7-hilled city at different periods during the same empire. That this is no mere fanciful assertion on my part, made up to give credibility to my own theory. I here quote the well-known historian of Rome, Tacitus. In the beginning, Rome was governed by kings. Then L. Brutus gave to her liberty the consulship. A temporary power was conferred on the dictators. The authority of the deceivers, well, that doesn't say deceivers. I'm so sorry. Decemvirs did not continue beyond the space of 2 years. Neither was the power of the military tribunes of long duration. The arms of Lepidus and Antony were surrendered to Augustus, who united all things under the name of prince in the imperial government. Tacitus here expressly mentions 6 forms of Roman government. That leaves just 2 more forms to be confirmed as having existed under the Roman Empire. William Reed confirms the 7 heads of the beast symbolize not only the 7-hilled cities, which was the capital of the Roman Empire, but also the 7-fold government of that empire. There is a well-known historical fact that there were 7 modes of administrating the civil power of Rome. Kings, consuls, dictators, decemvirs, tribunes, emperors, and dukes had one after another held the scepter. But the prophecy says 5 are fallen. Visualize the kings, the consuls, dictators, decemvirs, and military tribunes. And one is, meaning the 6th form of the Roman government, that of the emperors, which was the 6th form in historical order, and was the one then subsisting when the apostle wrote. The prophecy continues, and the other is not yet come, that is to say, a dukedom. I'm sorry. Forgive me. That is to say, a dukedom, which form of government, as the prophecy said, must continue but a short space or short time. This was the 7th form, which lasted about 160 years. Some say 200 years, either of which is a short time compared to the duration of the other forms of Roman government that preceded it, or in fact of the papal power, popish form, which followed the dukedom. Was the dukedom of Rome of short duration? According to the renowned historian Edward Gibbon, it continued for a period of 200 years, when Italy was divided unequally between the kingdom of the Lombards and the exarchats of Ravenna. If there was ever a man to whom we can go to for the history of ancient Rome, Gibbons is one of them. I accept his word. The prophecy then adds, and the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th. Revelation chapter 17, verse 11. This 8th form of Roman government, being after the dukedom, would only be that of the popes. For although seemingly different from all forms of Roman government that came before it, yet it is of the 7. What proof have we to back this interpretation? Read Daniel chapter 7, 7 through 8 in the Old Testament, where it tells us that the 4th kingdom, the papal horn or power, would uproot 3 of the 10 horns of the 7-headed beast, leaving 7 horns, with the little horn becoming the 8th, but yet belonging to the 7, because it came out of the nations that make up the final kingdoms left after the demise of the Roman Empire. The beast of Revelation chapter 17, verses 3 and 7, upon which the mystery woman sits, is clearly the same beast of Revelation chapter 13. For both beasts have 7 heads and 10 horns. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. Revelation chapter 13, verse 1. And the beast of Daniel chapter 7, verses 7 and 8, is also the same beast of Revelation, for it too has 10 horns, and being depicted in its final state when the previous 7 heads or forms of government had already passed away. It is seen by Daniel as having 10 horns, but just 1 head, the final form, which is papal. Papal Rome, the Pope's kingdom of blasphemies, is a prolongation or continuation of the same pagan dominion of the ancient Roman Empire under the guise of Christian church. For the angel told Daniel that the 8th horn, although shall be diverse, different in form or presentation from the other 7 horns, would be one of them. Said the illustrious Bishop Newton, it is the same old idolatrous persecuting domination in its last form of being, the very form in which it is destined to go into everlasting perdition. It shall not, as it did before, cease for a time and revive again, but shall be destroyed forever. Yes, the eighth was to go into perdition. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and goeth into perdition. Revelation chapter 17, verse 11. What is this beast? There is only one beast mentioned in the book of Revelation. That is the same beast of Revelation chapter 13 and 17, whose mark is 666. The word perdition is significant, as Apostle Paul calls the Pope the son of perdition, and his kingdom, the papacy, would be the last form of civil power of Rome. Reader, hitherto is the end of the matter. We cannot withhold our amazement at the wonderful correspondence between the angel's explanation and the facts of history. To steal the adapt the words of the learned Joseph Mead, who but the willing ignorant can dispute the synchronism and order of the apocalyptical prophecies, which are no hypothetical allegories or preconjecture, but firmly demonstrated from the very characters of the visions themselves, purposely inserted by the Holy Spirit and offered to examination according to a self-evident scheme, so that it may prove, as it were, by these clues to those who are involved in the unraveling of the sacred labyrinth, a Lydian stone or touchstone to discover the true and to refute every other erroneous interpretation of this prophecy. Chapter 21. Antichrist would use craft and deceit to prosper. If we look again to the book of Daniel, this time to chapter 8, verse 25, the prophet foretold that Antichrist would cause craft to prosper, and through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself. What is craft? Strong's Concordance defines the word craft, number 4820, as meaning fraud, deceit, and treachery. Thus, Antichrist through craft, deceit, and treachery, visualize deception, would advance its position, influence, and agenda. But how do we know that this entity, referred to by Daniel, is indeed the dreaded Antichrist? We know this entity is Antichrist because it opposes and magnifies itself against Jesus Christ. He shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. He shall also stand up against the Prince of Princes. Latter part of Daniel chapter 8, verse 25. Earlier in verse 23 of Daniel 8, it says, he shall also understand dark sentences. Strong's Concordance tells us that the word for dark is the same word for sentences, number 2420. Both words mean a puzzle or trick saying. The expression dark sentences comes from the root word meaning to put forth. Thus, Antichrist would put forth or utter dark sentences, language not readily understood by the uninitiated, which language will have a double meaning, designed to trick or mislead the hearer. The puzzle or trick in these dark sentences will be the issuing of double meaning in the same sentence. In other words, reader, Antichrist would have a double rule, one for its private and particular use, and another to flaunt with before the world. The agents or spokesmen of Antichrist, one same agents, I say agents because no sensible individual could really believe that Antichrist is a single man. For Paul says Antichrist was already in existence in his time. I think that was John, actually. I think that's a misprint because John said there is already many Antichrist. John said that. Yeah. We'll speak with mental reservation and amphibologies, that is to say, with double sense or ambiguous words, or to use the words of Constantine, laborum, justification of the means by the ends, and many other maxims subversive of honesty and morality. In short, Antichrist would be a system of unscrupulous duplicity, of impostors, of wolves in sheep's clothing. Have we any example in the long annals of history of such a duplicitous system using craft, deceit, fraud, and treachery as it crept into power over the world? William Tyndale, the great English reformer, in his practice of prelates, speaks of the rise of this phenomena by the following graphic parable. To see how the Holy Father came up, mark the ensemble of the ivy. First it springeth up out of the earth, and then a while creepeth along by the ground, till it finds a great tree. Then it joineth itself beneath unto the body of the tree, and creepeth up a little, fair and softly. At the beginning, while it is yet thin and small, the burden is not perceived. It seemeth glorious to garnish the tree in winter. But it holdeth fast withal, and ceaseth not to climb up till it be at the top and even above all. And then it sendeth its branches along by the branches of the tree, and overgroweth all, and waxeth great, heavy, and thick. And it sucketh the moisture so sore out of the tree and his branches, that it choketh and stifleth them. And then the foul, stinking ivy waxeth mighty in the stump of the tree, and becometh a seat and a nest for all unclean birds, and for blind owls, which hawk in the night, and dare not come to the light. Even so the Bishop of Rome, now called Pope, at the beginning, crope along upon the earth. Wow. 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 That's all I can say. With what clearness and boldness and considerable amount of historical learning does Tyndale traces the way by which the supremacy of the Pope arose. It has been said of this passage by one learned author that there is probably nowhere in the English language any passage superior in force and graphic skill to the well-known description of the rise of the Pope. Said historian Henry Gratian Guinness, in the 4th century, with the fall of paganism, began a worldly imperial Christianity, wholly unlike primitive apostolic Christianity, a sort of Christianized heathenism. And in the 5th and 6th century sprang up the papacy, in whose career the apostasy culminated later on. The mighty Caesars had fallen. Augustus, Domitian, Hadrian, Diocletians were gone. Even in Constantinians and Julians had passed away. The seat of sovereignty had been removed from Rome to Constantinople. Goths and Vandals had overthrown the Western Empire. The once mighty political structure lay shivered into broken fragments. The imperial government was slain by the Gothic sword. The Caesars were no more, and Rome was an actual desolation. Then slowly on the ruins of old imperial Rome rose another power and another monarchy, a monarchy of loftier aspirations and more resistless might, claiming dominion, excuse me, not alone over the bodies, but over the consciences and souls of men, dominion, not only within the limits of the fallen empire, but throughout the entire world. Higher and higher rose the papacy, till in the dark ages of Christendom was subject to its sway. With these remarks, let us turn to the prophecies concerning Antichrist and compare them with medieval and modern history. And I don't know, guys, I think we're going to end that there, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's going to put on the thing. So we'll pick up next time in chapter 22. I'm going to have to quit reading for a while because, like I said, I am not feeling well. My nose is running, my throat hurts, and I just am having a time here. But anyway, keep your eyes on Jesus, brothers and sisters. Oh, your nose on the book, which is the Word of God. And let us embed the Word of God upon the tablets of our hearts, so we will not sin against God or be deceived. Have a great day. Somebody wrote something. Hello, Tactus Kilgore. God bless you too. Have a beautiful day.